Welcome to the Strategic Project Leader, where we help you leverage strategic project management so you can achieve your goals. Now, here's your host, Fola Alabi.
Hello, good morning, and welcome to another great episode on the Strategic Project Leader. This is where we elevate our project professionals, business leaders, and even entrepreneurs on the superpowers in project management with a strategic focus. Today's really special because we have a great guest today who is going to be talking to us all things the future of project management. Are you excited? First, I want to know in the comments, let me know where you're actually joining me from, because I'm joining you all the way from Calgary in Alberta, and it's a sunny day. I think he brought the sunshine because normally at this time, it's already snowy. It was cold before, but believe it or not, when he comes in the room, things actually change. But let me give you some perspective. First off, for those who don't actually know me, I'm Fola F. Alabi. I'm a strategic project leader. I have helped organizations elevate for the past 2 decades. And I found an opportunity for us to elevate the project management discipline with strategic leadership and a focus that helps organizations elevate and accelerate the value that they can actually achieve. Oh my goodness. Yes, I can see the comments already coming in. Where you joining us from? I can see we've got France in the house. We've got Houston. We've got Nova Scotia. Quincy, great to see you. Great to see you, Samuel. Today's really special because let me just talk about this great leader. When I talk about a man who has shown example and who has been able to bring together a community of leaders to focus on one clear vision about project management, he has begun to elevate the discipline, support the volunteers, and do so many other things. He's been on the show before, and so this is not the first rodeo. And as he said just before we got on air, he's like, we are gonna be having fun. A little bit of this gentleman. I have got the president and CEO of the Project Management Institute. He's a global executive with a multicultural background. He brings a proven track record of delivering results and guiding organizations through complex transformations. He's passionate about leading teams through innovations with his skills and upskilling and education. And the fact is that he has done this and he loves exactly what he does. He's got a diverse background and he's actually gone across different nations. He's worked, in Europe, I think in Africa. And I love the fact that he brings his culture also into his work. He was raised in France by a Vietnamese father and a French mother. Goodness, I know we're connected in so many ways. And I want to, with no further ado, I want to bring up the president and CEO of the Project Management Institute, Pierres La Manh. Please, we need some applause. Okay. How are you doing this morning, Pierre?
I'm doing very well, and that was very funny. I loved it.
I love it as well. We were just talking about even before we came on air, you already set the scene to make it all relaxed. It's going to be fun today. So I want you to know, first off, make sure you have your questions. If you've got anything specific, this is a chance to hear directly from Pierre. And before we get anything, there's one question I really want to ask is, first of all, I think we talked this before. What made you fall in love with project management, maybe?
Well, I would tell you, first of all, thank you for having me again. Hello, everyone, from wherever you are. I fell in love with project management, in fact, as any CEO does, because if you think about it, CEOs, yes, work on strategy for a while, but it's something you do initially when you start, and then mostly you try to stick to it and not change your strategy all the time, because that's exactly how you destroy an organization, when you change the main direction all the time. Do you work on operations? Yes, of course. Once in a while you have to be involved, and sometimes very much with the details and the nuts and bolts of the organization. But normally, when things work out and when you have the right team, you don't have to deal with day-to-day operations all the time. So what do CEOs do? We focus on our transformation agenda. We set the tone initially. You have a vision, a strategy that you take the time to fine tune, and then you work on transforming. So that's how you leave a mark as a CEO. That's what you want to accomplish. And so that's why very early, because I was a CEO for the first time when I was, I think, 31. And then I've been doing this for a long time now. I've been working on transformation, and transformations are achieved, are accomplished through projects. So that's how I fell in love, if this is the way to say it, with project management. I would say it was more rational, a love of reason in a way. And then I joined PMI, and since then it's become a completely different world for me in terms of emotional connections, bonding. As you said, the community we're trying to engage with and mobilize to increase project success, because this is the way the world can improve. And so from an emotional standpoint, that has become true love now. Before it was more
Absolutely.
rational love, now it's an emotional love as well.
100%. You spoke about transformation, and the fact is, we live in a vocal world, right? Things are getting more complex. We're talking about projects no longer what they used to be like before, technology and all of that. And people are actually wondering, right, how on earth, can the future ready PM be ready for all of this? Everyone wants to know, Pierre, what's that silver bullet? What can we do now to prepare for this?
One thing that is interesting is when I'm asked about VUCA, I always look back and wonder, when was it that we were not talking about change? And in my career, I've never heard anything like that. It's always been about change and transformation. The VUCA term and language was coined a little later, but when I started my career decades ago now, we were already talking about transformation, and the change is the only constant. That kind of platitudes were already used at the time. But what I agree with is that the pace of transformation has actually really accelerated. Very difficult to hold onto any strategy, any plan without making some changes along the way, because so many things are evolving very fast these days. So yes, the pace has changed. For me, if you want to be successful and thrive in such an environment, first of all, it's a lot in the head. It's your mental model, your mindset. You need to have a growth mindset. You need to see opportunity in all the risks and the changes, because you know that in the curves, you can go faster than competition, and that's how you gain competitive advantage. But of course, that mental model has to be about the ability to adapt, right? Your ability to adapt is critical, and adaptation, frankly, is something you learn. You learn to adapt because you live, or you force yourself to live in an environment or live experiences that have you adapt. And the more you've done it, it's just like anything else. You practice adaptation and then you become better at that. So that mental model is essential. And then I would say there are a few things that I think are very useful to develop in a world that is complex and changing and fast changing. System thinking, very essential, I think, not just to fight risks, but also to find the opportunities. Resilience is usually more visible, more prevalent with complex systems. And of course, we're always torn, especially as CEOs, because we try to simplify, but we have to recognize that there's more resilience in complex systems than in simple systems. So you have to have this ability to understand how things connect together, how they influence each other, but also how they can segregate from each other. And once you have a big problem somewhere, the rest of your system can rebound faster and maybe make up for the issues that you've had, or the consequences of the problems that you've had. So important to develop that. I would say, and it's a little bit related to your ability to adapt, it's important to be knowledgeable of various cultures, have traveled, of course, a lot, be informed about the world. It doesn't have to be about project management only. Of course, you're all passionate about project management, as I am, but we also have to understand the context around project management. So understanding the trends in the world, understanding anything beyond project management, anything that has an impact on how the world evolves, on how trends are set, where we're going, all that is super important and will help you be more adaptable as well, because you understand the context of things, and it helps you with your system thinking abilities as well. For project managers specifically, I think there's still a lot to learn. Actually, the power skills that we talk a lot about, still need to be developed, but I see a lot of project managers, especially the people who gravitate around PMI, being pretty good at that. Good at communicating. You're a good example for that, but you're probably one of the best examples. But we have a lot of people in this community, in this global community, who are very good at communicating. So I don't think this is a fatality for project managers to be introverts who can't speak or too shy. I mean, we see a lot of that, of course, but many of them are developing well. The business acumen is what sometimes I feel is missing a little bit. So understanding business models, why companies operate the way they do, thinking a little bit in the same way as the C-suite, and I think we've talked about that before, will make a big difference as well and will help you adjust more quickly to a very fast pace of change. And now I would add one word about AI, of course, but I'm sure we'll talk more about that.
You know,
These
yes,
days, you have to understand what's going on. Yes, of course, and be constantly learning, keep up with AI. The good news is that we're all on the starting line almost, right? So some of us have made a few steps, but we're still at the very beginning of this race. And so whatever is your starting point, you can still win in the end. But you got to really think about making the move.
I know, and you've given us a lot of hope that we can still win. It doesn't matter where you're at. Pierre has made it clear that we are all in this together. I know even PMI have put together like courses and programs to empower the project manager. But one thing that I actually want to point out is you just spoke about the project manager getting that skill set beyond project management, the business acumen. I think that's absolutely critical because a lot of the time people feel I have on time, on board, on schedule. That's what you focus on. People who have been able to move up the corporate ladder are ones who have demonstrated that's all-round approach where you understand a bit of operations, you understand a bit of the business, being well-rounded and well-grounded. And that's why I believe that PMs definitely need to accelerate in their learnings to become strategic project leaders, where they understand a bit of the business, they understand a bit of operations as well, because the path to executive leadership is not for the linear-minded, right? It's for those who are definitely open to learn, who are ones who want to embrace change, because that's the only constant thing. And drive strategy, because at the end of the day, I know what you want to know is how are we impacting ROI? Whatever we set as our strategic goals and objectives, how does your role tie into that? And that brings me to my next questions. As organizations that accelerate, especially when it comes to digital transformations, what are the other skills that PMs need to start looking to develop today? I know we know AI is there, but what else do you think they could actually touch on a bit more that can help position them for success beyond just like I know how to create a Gantt chart, I know how to just put my status reports. What else are those things that you have seen that has also helped you become a strategic leader that you are today?
Agility, but I think many project managers fully understand that. Unfortunately, these days, even if you deliver your project on time, on schedule, within the scope and budget, it's very possible, it's conceivable that your CEO or the C-suite will still be unhappy with it and believe that the project was a failure. Because between the time when all the specs were designed or defined and the time when you deliver, things have changed already. And C-suite CEOs are under constant pressure of adjusting to an environment that is moving, competitive environment, technology, everything, geopolitical risks. So you have to understand that whatever was initially the plan will change, right? So you have to have this mental ability, once again, to be very agile and accept that you live in a world where parameters will change and not put the blame on others to change the parameters because you are part of that. And that's all about understanding the context. You have to understand the CEO's agenda. It's also on you. And if you don't understand the CEO's agenda, putting the blame on your CEO will not help you that much. Maybe you're right. But in the end, you have to make the effort to really understand the context in which you operate, the strategic context. What is the goal? That is the broader goal, the higher order goal and purpose of the organization that you work for. And that's going to help you a ton. But I know most of you understand that and are trying hard to make this happen. But it's really important to always remember it, because when I work with project managers myself, I feel sometimes there is what they understand conceptually and what they actually do day to day. And that's sometimes a little different. We're all the same. We have all these great ideas. all these great convictions. We're very determined to work in a certain way. And then on the day-to-day, we tend to forget that and revert to the way we've been operating for a long time and, following processes and stuff, which is important too, but we have to have this agility and apply it to our day-to-day job. I would say it's important to understand also the transformation playbook. How does it work to transform? A lot of that is about people, of course. PMI has a lot of resources that are available. I don't know if you're aware of our Brightline, for instance, our Brightline digital transformation playbook. Very good book that gives you lots of practices of how transformations actually work. We have a recent AI report on AI-driven transformations. So that's maybe helpful if you work already on AI transformation for your organizations. The Brightline Compass, which explains the 5 things that really matter in any transformation, the North Star, customer insights, how do you leverage them, and megatrends, the operating system of a transformation, how you find champions in the organization and motivate them, and then the whole concept of inside-out transformation, so transforming but focused on the outside. So that's very important as well. And I would maybe add one point that is becoming more and more important, especially in this world of AI. We need project managers to be data-driven. And what's interesting is that usually project managers believe that they are data-driven. And in fact, they are, generally speaking, much more data-driven than the average professionals. But here again, you need the data, but you also need the mindset. The mindset is accepting what the data is saying, even when the data is saying something that you don't want to hear. And that's
right.
one of the most difficult things, right? To accept that data is data, and we hate it, but it is what it is. And the more time you will take to accept what the data is saying and act upon what the data is saying, the more you're going the wrong direction, right? So it is very important to have this ability as well and develop it. It's hard.
I know, and you just mentioned that because 34% of product success rates have actually increased just due to agile adoption, just embracing agility. I know people get stuck on Scrum or those Kanban board or whatever. The concept of agility is actually you being flexible, being able to adapt, right? Understanding where technology is actually going, learning, as Pierre said, from C-suite, what's the direction now? It could have changed from when your product was actually initiated, but that doesn't mean that your products actually keep going. Agility, I believe, is one of the key things that we need to take away, because as a PM, as a business leader, as an entrepreneur, if you do not actually adapt consistently and constantly, then there's actually going to be a problem. I know you've actually mentioned that, but from your experience, like you said, it's hard, like the mindset. How can people really create that shift? When you see the data, as you said, now it's like the data says something else. How can we get PMs, especially maybe even from a C-suite executive, convince them now to say, we are great, we have Pierre now because you have this mindset. But in reality, not all CEOs or C-suite kind of get this whole mindset. You see what I mean, Pierre? Where we have a PM who feels like, goodness, I'm going back to work now, but my C-suite just doesn't actually get it. How can they convince them that this is the right way? Any ideas?
I think it's very important to speak the same language as they do.
Yes.
And they will speak a language that is typically simpler than what project managers would, the language that project managers would typically use. They would be focused on competitive advantage, top line and bottom line, not just the cost. Cost is important, but cost is just a way to get more revenue as well. Here I'm talking about private companies, right? So let's reduce to this. If you work for a government, it would be a slightly different way of thinking probably. And if you work for an NGO, it's slightly different as well. But in the end, the same principles apply. You talked about ROI before. This is true. That's a language that the C-suite will understand. But the ROI should not be seen in a very restrictive way, like a calculation of, because it's very difficult to calculate the ROI, right? Especially in advance, it's all very debatable. But understanding the strategic benefit, the outcome, of course, of what you're doing and how what you're doing or not doing the right way will affect the outcomes, the desired outcome or the vision that the C-suite has is what really matters to them. So understanding that concept, that context what is it exactly that the organization is trying to accomplish and achieve? Really listening very carefully to that will help you talk the same language. Once you speak the same language, people will start to trust you. And if they trust you, they will believe that you're right, even sometimes even too much, just because they trust you, right?
Yes.
You have to create that trust, and the trust is not something that you can just ask for without working on it yourself, and it's the ability to speak the same language is the very basic starting point.
That's right. I think it's absolutely critical. Like speaking the language beyond just coming to say we're actually over budget, as you said, what are the business drivers? What's the top line? What's the bottom line? Coming to say like these are the key initiatives that are currently running. This is how it's going to actually probably affect our social license to operate. How does it affect, our regulatory compliance? Those are the key things that the C-suite executives need to understand. I think it may be beneficial as well when you create your status report. You could have the basic stuff right at the bottom, but when you're dealing with C-suite executives, you need to elevate that. It's not about those massive Gantt charts, right? They want to see what are those key drivers? How does it affect the overall portfolio? Because at the end of the day, those are the things that truly matter. Speaking to what matters, building trust, as Pierres actually said, is like a key ingredient. And also, I think I want to add that, also giving them options, Pierre. What do you think? Like when PMs come up with ideas and stuff, never said it has to be this way. Leaders want to have options to say, we've actually done some analysis. These are the 3 paths we can go. These are the risks, right? This is actually how it's going to impact us as a business. And then they can make data-informed decisions. And this now brings me to AI. Goodness. Everyone is wondering, artificial intelligence, machine learning. How is
Well,
this?
may I just add, sorry to interrupt you, but may I just add one thing? Even in a formal setting, like a meeting that is planned to review how a project is doing, you always have with the C-suite and the CEO in particular, those 20 seconds where you have to earn the right to speak for 2 minutes and get their attention. And these 2 minutes will give you 20 minutes, and then the 20 minutes may give you a lot of time. It is a mistake to think that CEOs or C-suite are not interested in details, but you have to make them interested in listening to you in the first place. And for that, you got like 20 seconds. It's a very fast thing. They will right away be interested or not so interested. You got to catch their interest with something, like find this angle and then unfold, right?
Oh, I like that. I love the fact that, as you just said, we have to catch the interest of the C-suite executives. So give us some examples, right? What are the things that will definitely catch your interest here?
Well, it depends. Right now I'm working a lot on how PMI is evolving in the world of AI, for instance.
Yes.
So, of course, if you come to me and talk to me about changes in technology that may make our products that we're developing obsolete, I'll be interested right away.
You just heard that, guys.
Interest.
Yeah,
Right?
you just heard that. PA is going to be arms open. If you're out there, you've got some AI ideas or transformation, you have got a path in. So, we just dropped some germs over there. Think and
Well, this is just an example, right? Doesn't mean that this is the only thing I'm interested in. I was just trying to give you an example, but there are other things that are in very different areas that could catch my attention the same way. Could be a risk, could be opportunity, could be a lot of things.
That's right. But I think the overall idea here is understanding even the trends, understanding the market, right? It could also be something that you may have not even thought about. As they say, like, for instance, the technology companies, they said, we want to create products that you may not even know that you need yet. So being a little bit more strategic to understand the markets and say, this is where things are going. We should be thinking about this. What are we doing to actually attract the right customers or create a better community? That's definitely awesome. So now with AI, how do you really see the project management world completely evolving and changing, the impact of AI? How are we preparing for the next wave of advancement? What should project managers, even business leaders and organizations start doing today?
Yeah, it's very visible that project managers understand now, for the most part, the massive impact that AI may have on their jobs. It's like 80% right now of project managers are saying that there will be some impact. Some of them feel massive impact, some other less impact. Depends a little bit on your personality as well, but 80% believe there's an impact that is coming. Now, only a fraction of them feel prepared in any way. Only a fraction. We were in Atlanta at the PMI Global Summit 2 weeks ago, and we had a number of sessions. It was about, I think, 20% of our content was about AI, between what we had in our exhibit hall, what we had on stage, the sessions by experts, the conversations, everything. Now, people, when you ask them now, what did you get interested in during the conference? I would say 100% would say first AI. This is what we had a lot of interest for. So there's an immense interest, which is good. It's very good. To me, it feels that the profession really understands what is at stake here. We launched a course, an overview of AI applied to project management about a month ago. We've had already 80,000 people who registered.
Wow.
Not everybody has completed the course yet, but tens of thousands have. We have more courses coming. We have announced the launch of a product called PMI Infinity, which would be an AI assistant. We have several formats, including GPTs, which hopefully we'll have in the marketplace the day it opens. We have started to produce quite a bit of thought leadership. We are really, as PMI, committed to lead the transformation of project management by AI. And we have this broad initiative called PMI by AI. But in the end, practice is what will make the difference. And I'm already seeing this among our own PMI employees. Many of them have their own ChatGPT account because we don't have a company account yet. I mean, we're trying, but it's very difficult. There's a long line, long queue.
Yes.
But we have many employees who have that, and I can already see the difference between the ones who have an account and the ones who don't. And already I see this kind of discrepancy happening between the people who are curious. And remember, embrace curiosity is one of the 5 values of PMI. So very important to remember that. But this difference between the people who have embraced, at least experimenting on their own, on the side, the AI tools that are available, and the ones who have not, is kind of a self-selection, right? And as a project professional, you have to decide if you're in or if you're out. And if you're in, unfortunately, right now, you can't open an account, at least for ChatGPT 4, but it's going to come back once they have a new CEO at OpenAI.
Yeah.
Things will come back, things will accelerate, and you have to be part of that race. I'm really trying to make sure that there are about 100 million project professionals worldwide. Some would say yes, but the definition is a little fuzzy, which is true. Even if there are 100 million, if there are 50 million project professionals worldwide, I want all of them to embrace AI and be able to leverage AI. That's how the profession will also, frankly, make a difference with other professions that may be much more slow and concerned or passive, right? This active behavior that I'm seeing across many project managers across the profession is going to be a fantastic opportunity for us. And remember, all companies, all governments, everyone is going to have AI transformation projects. Who's going to lead that?
That's right. And the thing is, it's really, really important because at the end of the day, we're going to have different tools come and actually evolve. And I love the fact that you mentioned about being curious, having that mindset to continuously learn, because after AI, there's going to be something else. But are you prepared as a project professional to leverage the tools that are here and the tools that are actually coming? I talk about project intelligence because it's about building that avatar of that leader who is there, who wants to learn, who wants to be strategic, who wants to implement, who wants to leverage technology. Because think about the .com, right? When we thought that the world was something was gonna happen by the time we wake up the next morning. Technology is pretty much there to lead the way, to help simplify and make things even better. Let's not talk about the negatives. But I think the key here is, and I love the fact that PMI is also doing stuff around that business acumen and that drive, folks, for stronger and greater leaders, because it's about leadership now. And that mindset shift that everyone actually listening to us definitely needs to definitely embrace, because beyond what your day-to-day role is how curious are you? Are you going out to understand, where is even when it comes to sustainability, right? We talk about what process can you put in place today to create the better world for ourselves? How can we leverage technology? What else is also, brewing out there? Because when you're ahead of it and you embrace change, it changes everything. And this ties into my next piece about leadership. People kind of say project management, we're just there and really, really tactical. I see a lot of the work, project actually doing is so significant. We're talking about multi-billion dollar initiatives. We know that project management drives and fuels the global economy. Over like 40% of the global GDP are fueled by projects. So it goes beyond just management. There's a lot of leadership that comes into play in actually doing this. And so how can you tie like a leadership skill set that needs to be added to all of this now? So what skills that ties into like better leaders do we need to start looking at for our project professionals today to be able to elevate and chart a path to executive leadership?
Yeah, so first of all, let me say that I don't love this um, management is not as good as leadership thinking,
Okay.
because leadership is something you can have when you're a child.
Yes.
Right? It is a trait that you can develop, of course. We all know leadership is something that you can learn and develop and nurture. And by the way, it's not forever as well. You can lose it in a way if you lose it, right? So
You
you
don't
got to
developing, right?
fuel that. You have to fuel that all the time. So leadership is one thing. Management is a different thing. Management is the ability to organize the work for people. It's the ability to manage the work, right? It is a different skill set. It is not incompatible, but you got to learn both if you want to really be good at what you're doing. Okay,
Yes.
a terrible manager, although a fantastic leader, is probably not a good idea to have managing people. Right? Management is a science as well, and it's important. So I want to say that. I do say project managers, I would do say project professionals more than project managers. Um, Mostly in the recognition of project professionals are more than just managers, right?
Yes.
They need to learn more skills. I don't like saying project leaders. I think that doesn't contribute to any debate. But project professionals, yes, because I like the word professional. I think sometimes people don't fully realize how much project management is a profession that you need to learn,
Yes.
and it has to be recognized. That's why we have the PMP. That's why we have so many ways to recognize each other as competent professionals, people who have learned things. So what I think we have to really focus on is not just the way single projects are managed, but
Yes.
when you speak about corporate transformation, which is usually what the C-suite has in mind, sometimes they are really focused on one single project, of course, like a massive project, like you mentioned before, multi-billion project. But most of us work on things that are part of a bigger concept, a bigger plan, right? So corporate transformation is more than just one single project. Single projects usually in the corporate world have a limited impact, right? Some of them have a huge impact, but usually it's just the addition of all these projects that have a real strong impact. And so the issue for all of us is to think about how we can foster a system that favors project success, right?
Yes.
Beyond one project, projects will be successful in your organization if the system that has been developed really favors project success, including solid portfolio management, and of course, including having a strong PMO. And that's why we acquired PMO GA lately at PMI, or recently. That's the role of the Chief Transformation Officer. And if you think of the people who are doing that, building the system that makes projects successful, they are a trusted advisor of the C-suite. Actually, usually they are even part of the C-suite, because
Yes.
that's what the C-suite is looking for, a system that works, not just one single project that works.
And that's right. And that's where we need to get to, because you find out where there is that inclusion, right? Where we have that project management discipline, that profession that is seen as not just go in and deliver a product and walk away, where there's that full integration. And that's why I bring the leadership side as well, because I realize that people are good at just managing day-to-day tasks, but raising your head a little bit up to say, now there's a bit of leadership and having that strategic focus, because to your point, project management now has to become more formalized, where just like an accountant who says, I could become the next CFO. We want to break the glass ceiling for project professionals where they can chat about to executive leadership. And I see that was maybe like a chief strategy officer, because project management drives strategy. We are the ones that take the strategic ideas and create the strategic outcomes. And to your point, being part of the conversations, having be the PMO or discipline where from the formulation of those strategic ideas to the delivery to benefit realization, project management as a discipline is kind of part of it, because we have seen a lot of data that shows that we will increase project success. And to your point, you even mentioned that a project that gets delivered on time, on schedule, and on budget may not also be the overall determining factor of success. So overall success is determined by what the strategic drivers are, which we all need to be totally connected with. And that's where the business acumen comes in, where PMs now need to say, yes, I can deliver tactically, but now I need to understand what the strategic focus is as well. I need to understand how to ensure that we realize the benefits, because at the end of the day, there's no point even doing all of this great work when there really isn't any value going forward. And that's where this marriage of like being a great manager, being a great leader comes together in crazy outcome that we want. So I'm loving this. Before we get to project lifestyle, oh my goodness, it's just so much to go through. You spoke about data driven. When we talk about data and decision making, it's so crucial for project management. And the take around to actually improve project performance, how do you see even like project management begin to have like a form of like even maybe like a course around like data management? Because I know we kind of touch it, but not as much, because I think data is almost like an ingredient now that helps C-suite make informed decision. What are your thoughts around, being data driven as well as like a key skill or a key ingredient to ensure that we can move towards the goal of organizational growth?
Yeah, by the way, our second course on AI will be around data, because there are multiple issues and angles managing data properly, ethics, cyber security, a lot of things. I have personally spent many years of my professional life in the world of data. First, I was running a database marketing company, and then I worked many years in market research. So I am, of course, a very big believer of data and insights and knowledge that you derive from the insights. Without them, I feel we make blind decisions. We rely on our limited experience. We rely on our own very biased judgment. So it is very important to have data. But like I said before, it's not just about having the data. It's about accepting the data. I remember I was working at one point for this very large multinational in the luxury brands area. And in spite of all the money they were spending in consumer insights and market research and trends and all of that, in the end, the CEO's wife and his teenage daughter had more influence than the data. Which,
oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, the company is fairly successful though, so they're probably very good. But I don't think that in the big scheme of things, this is the way things should work, right? You need to be able to extract yourself for your conviction that you know better, right? And look at the data, whatever is your position in the company, in the organization, you have to look at the data and accept the data with objectivity. Of course, you can always, we have to make sure that the data is robust, it's that the insights derived from the data are not biased, that there's a strength in the way things have been analyzed and the insights have been created. But in the end, you have to accept the data, and that's I think a process for most people. It's a process. Now, beyond that, I would say you always have to remember that data can be sometimes overwhelming, and the ability to present data in a way that is compelling is critical. And that's not a skill that you are born with, right? We tend to be, when we're younger, less experienced, we tend to be proud of showing a lot of data. That's not effective, right? A lot of data has to be there in case people want to deep dive. But remember, the 20 seconds you need to earn the trust, and then the 20 minutes or 20 whatever, right? So it's like, it's progressive. Data is the same thing. You need to find and extract the one data point that is really exciting or very worrisome, but anyway, that is very impactful. Once you get people interested in that, then you start digging into more. But dumping a lot of data on people, which is increasingly what I'm seeing everywhere, right? Massive reports, dashboards, this is not going to work. This is not going to work because people don't get excited with the prospect of having to go through pages and
Information
pages on
overload.
data. Right. It's not the way it works.
I know information. I just saw that we've got even doctors in the house. Listen, we are taking project management beyond just the bare profession. We want to break it where the lawyers, the doctors, everyone can actually leverage these tools and get results. I'm super excited. And it's just a perfect time for project lifestyle. We just spoke about data and spoke about every other piece. And this kind of struck a chord for me. And I felt, what are we going to talk about? Pierre's showing a lot of insight around how we dive into leadership. We know we spoke about the fact that it's a profession. We spoke about agility. And what I came up with, and I thought about change. Pierre spoken about the fact that change is the only constant piece, that he's always cared about that. Beyond just being in the vocal world now, change has always been there. And how can we be nimble? And how can we leverage this even for personal development? I want us to think about the word change as an acronym. And for me, C there is about continuous reflection and refinement. Be it at home, be it in the office, whatever you're given. How are you constantly clarifying and refining your vision of what needs to happen? Pierre's mentioned that we have to be always connected to the strategic outcomes of the organization. Are you evolving the way the organization is actually evolving? Think about that. That's the C. The H for me is about habitual learning and adaptation. Habitual learning and adaptation. This is about agility. How agile are you? Are you flexible? Do you actually embrace the mindset of continuous learning? Or you want to kind of say it's this is the way we've done things for the last 10 years. So why should we change? Learning and having that mindset and being open, habitual learning and adaptation is absolutely critical, because that way it's a mindset that you are open to learn and share. Then A for me is about that assessment, agile assessment and analysis. He also just spoke about data. What information are you getting? What data points are you checking? How flexible are you? Are you constantly analyzing this information and getting the right data points so you can make the right informed decision? And also, since with executives, you can actually make that decision, even at home. Are you open to feedback? And there for me is being nimble, especially when planning. You want to just fix and you've kind of feel that, how do I navigate this? No, it has to go A, B, C, D, E. Or you want to kind of say that it's okay if things change a little bit. How flexible are you when you plan and when you execute? So think about the ability. Then G there for me is about generating iterative momentum. We spoke that agile is just sprinkled everywhere. Every process of the way is about being flexible. Think about the culture that you actually set up. And then the E overall is about embedding a culture of improvement. With everything bit, with AI, with being more financially savvy, whatever your goals are, it's about having a mindset that is open to improvement. That's the key, because what makes a great project manager, what makes a great professional, is one who is able to embrace change and evolve as we go. Oh my goodness, Pierre. I'm just so excited because I just want to just acknowledge we've got so many people here right there. We've got questions as well. But what are your thoughts on that about embracing change and doing that constantly? Yeah.
I think you're said very well. It's again, it's a mindset. It's a mental model that you need to have, that you see the change as the opportunity for you and
Yes.
for your organization. Because trust me, when nothing changes, it's very hard
Mm,
to progress, to make a move, to improve your own situation, to improve the situation of your company. So yes, potentially you can be crushed by change, but the reality is that if you have the right mindset, you'll gain more than you lose with change. But I do recognize that it can be scary, right? That's why it's all in your head. Do you sometimes play, when I was a kid, I loved doing something because I did not understand how that worked. I would walk on a line on the road, right? It would be so easy to walk on that line. And then I was trying to walk on a wall, same width, was so much more difficult. And I was trying to understand why. Why is it more difficult? It's the same thing, right? So I tried in my head to imagine I was walking on the road,
mm,
to be less scared and more balanced, but it's very difficult to do. Very difficult. It's in your head, right? The
Yes.
perception you have of the risk is in your head.
So pretty much practice might be a good one, right? To be able to step out of your comfort zone. It's about, it said, feel the fear and do it anyway. You have to just try and put yourself out there in safe spaces as well, right? Creating places where there's psychological safety. You could try things. And they say feel fast. I really don't like that word feel fast. I say lessons learned. Learn fast and adapt as you go.
I think the concept of failing
Oh, the hot seat. You can just go before we get into questions and answers. Okay, Pierre, you were saying something.
No, I was just saying the concept of failing fast is often not really well understood, right? So people feel, oh, failing fast is, this image of throwing spaghettis on the wall and see what sticks. That's not what failing fast is about. Failing fast is recognizing pretty quickly that you're going the wrong direction and correct. That's what is
Correcting.
failing fast.
So pretty much lessons.
Insisting when
Yes.
it's obvious that you're not going to achieve anything. So you got to pivot, and accept. That's again mental model. Difficult to accept sometimes that you've put so much effort in something that you have to stop and pivot instead of putting more and more and more. It's the story of the guy who's been waiting for 30 minutes for a bus, and you feel, am I giving up? Or I've already invested 30 minutes of my time, so maybe I should wait for more. And then 45 minutes, and it feels like you have a lot to lose because you've already invested 45 minutes, in spite of becoming quite obvious that there's a real problem, and probably it's time to take your loss, right? It's mental model.
I know, and I think that mental piece around psychology is actually another piece, right? Where it's all in your head. At times where you feel it's kind of like this give and take model, right? It's like the opportunity cost. Some things have happened that you have to draw the line at some point and say, this has happened already. Now let's learn from it quickly and adapt fast so that we don't actually lose even more. And so getting that in our head and practicing and creating safe spaces for us to actually adapt and do that pretty quick. So let's go through some questions.
Sure.
Oh, when we talk about, I know now with
I can't see them for that, so you'll have to, or I don't know where to click to see.
Okay. Let's see. Let me go with them. I'm gonna put them all out. Okay, let's show one of the questions. So, what is driving management to hire non-trained individuals to lead the PMO?
It's because PMI is not spending enough time with management to explain that non-qualified people leading the PMO is a terrible idea.
Yes, I know. That's another piece, even around, educating our C-suite executive and management around the value that project management definitely brings, because when we have this kind of advocacy where they kind of see that project managers or project management is not just another temporary piece on, on the balance sheet where they kind of go and come in. It has to be more of a permanent discipline. I love the fact that.
But I think as PMI is trying to mobilize the entire profession to increase project success, when I see cases like that or hear about cases like that, I feel it's a failure, right? So we, as a profession, have to make the profession more visible, and management understand that project management requires skills. It's not like anyone who can be the head of PMO without being properly trained as a project manager and have a long career of experience in that field. Of course, chief transformation officer requires more than just understanding project management, but if you don't have these basics right, then it's going to be a disaster, right? So definitely,
right.
Our job as PMI, at least, and for sure the whole profession together, is to educate the entire world about what is being a project professional. And we would do less of that. I would tell you though, I've met with a number of, for instance, recently I was talking to a number of CEOs in advertising agencies, and they all know that the way they manage projects is not very strong, right? They're very good at creative and sales, not so much as actually doing stuff. And one of them just launched their ePMO office, or actually their enterprise PMO office, and they actually asked us how to do that, and as friends more than anything else. And they were very conscious that it's not something that can be set up by people who have no clue what is a proper ePMO. So it's not all CEOs, it's not all C-suite who don't understand that, luckily.
100%. Like, having done this for like 2 decades, I have seen PMOs start up and get disbanded because a lot of the times where there has to be like a cost center when they have to reduce costs, they always go to that discipline and they just feel, yes, they're kind of like the paper pushes. And I have had a lot of work also educating to show that there's a strategic element to this, and aligning to strategic objectives is absolutely critical to success. I'm so glad that PMI is doing a lot of work to elevate that. And with this whole PMI, the PMO piece that's come on board as well, we're going to be seeing a lot of trainings as well. I know there was a question around when is that data course coming out? I don't know if I've missed it. Someone asked about the data course you spoke about. When should they expect that to go live?
Data cost.
No, course, the
Oh,
course.
course. Sorry,
Oh,
course.
yeah.
I think the team is going to hate me because I think we haven't set the launch date, but I think January is the plan.
Okay, okay. So watch out. Something on data is coming. So around January, you're going to be learning loads and lots of skills. I think we kind of touched this a little bit. So what would be some hints or advice for you to better develop business acumen skills?
So I'm someone who believes in the top-down approach on that, which means trying to read the Wall Street Journal or any other newspaper of that kind. Try to understand how the world of economy works, and then you will go deeper. But I think the understanding of the broader context, it matters more than the techniques of business that can be learned in your own organization. But understanding that context, how things work, the basics of finance and financial markets and the economy, this gives you a better, broader picture or understanding the broader picture, then that will help you a lot understanding then business models and how companies work. At least that's my view. I don't know that everybody would agree with that, but I sort of believe pretty strongly that understanding the broader picture is critical to understanding business.
For sure. And it's interesting because I had Dr. Alexander from Oxford University just last week, and he's actually saying that when you look at even C-suite now, you find out that all the CEOs of people at that particular level are one now who have also had to do a bit of product delivery, as well as people who also have that business, experience and the skill set beyond just delivering product. They actually understand a bit of, how operations will, how the retail side, if it's a retail organization, right, the different elements. And so I love the fact that, you have to go broad, almost like getting like an MBA kind of thing, right? You understand the economics of things, just being curious about what makes my organization tick? Why are we in business? What do our customers want? How are we meeting the customer needs? And go have a coffee with maybe people on the front line, book a meeting one of C-suite executives as well. I'm just being curious to learn changes everything as well. Going forward. Let's just see if we can take some couple more questions. We still have time. I think we've kind of tackled a lot of them in our conversation. Good leadership, poor leadership. Not a good poor methodology is difficult for good leaders, managers to rescue. A good methodology is difficult for poor mediocre leaders. Yeah, pretty much. I think you've kind of asked your questions and answered it. I think PMI, we're all about creating a profession, right, that equips product professionals to be successful. And I love the fact that, Pierre, you have challenged each and every professional to go out there and go beyond the pinball guide, beyond these manuals, and say, go understand what's happening, what's the global economy, what does it look like? How is the interest rates? How does it affect your business, right? How does the cost of borrowing money? How is it going to impact your project? So having that mindset, being more strategic as well, is a sure ticket to actually get you not just executing your projects right, but becoming that person that can chat a part to executive leadership as well. So let
You
me
know
see.
what I used to do, and this is my own experience, and of course I was already a business leader, but I used to, for the companies that I work for, I used to go see whatever publication um, our competitors were issuing. So I would go to their S1s if they were doing an IPO, read their 10Ks or whatever for the listed companies, right? So you have a lot of information there, and you don't have to read the entire document. It's like 600 pages, of which maybe 20 are interesting. And you learn a ton because then reading what your competition is doing, a lot of stuff is actually published.
Yes.
And I can guarantee you, if you go to a meeting with your CEO and you say, well, I saw this in the S1 of whatever company, um, that's going to interest them. Right?
That's right.
Going to interest them. It's very easy to do. Like all of you can do that very easily. You read the annual reports, you read a few things, and already you'll know a lot. And that's not the thing that people usually do, but it doesn't take that much time.
100%. That's what makes differentiates you from everybody else. Where you step out of your comfort zone, right? You go a little bit different, as you said, and that will definitely catch the attention of C-suite executives, right? To say, guess what? I just found that our competition, they're chatting into new markets, right? They're looking at these new.
It's published. It's public. Like if they say,
Yes,
how do you know that? Well, it's public. It's in their own publication, their last 10K, like which is the quarterly, whatever, or 10, or the S1 if they go public, right? That kind of documents. They're all available, especially in the US. Um,
that's
Easy to find.
yes. Someone just said talking about stakeholder management. I know we talk about the people side, and some people talk about bringing the people back to project management. Just what do you think? The key benefits of like just being like a great people person. I know you've touched on it, but at least we know we got this the benefits of all. But the benefits all stakeholders. Yes, but I know I had another question where they were talking about how can people develop that people side. We spoke about the power skills. What can people do to develop their power skills even more?
So I think you all know that, right? You're all very conscious of the need to um, learn how to manage people and communicate and all of this. And I think all of you in the project management profession, at least the ones who are listening to you right now, are people who are curious already. Otherwise, they would not be there. So you all know that, and I'm not going to teach you any of that. Maybe the only comment I want to make is that if we're working in a remote environment now, increasingly, it's not new for project managers, right? Let's be clear. A lot of project managers actually are well prepared for a hybrid world because they already had teams that were distributed much more than in operations. It's always been in many companies more acceptable to have a project managed by people who are not in the same place because you're looking for expertise and it's
Yeah.
temporary, right? Than operations that have always been tried, that people try to regroup them in the same place so people can be together. So working in a more hybrid and remote environment has been, in fact, an easier adjustment for many project professionals than in many other areas. With some exceptions, the Scrum teams, for instance, are struggling with that because the whole concept was to be in the same room and all of that. But generally speaking, it's not been too bad. However, we understand how to manage this short term, but now it's been 3-4 years, right? And the long-term consequences of hybrid work or remote work are still unknown. And I would say, especially if you're a young professional and you've spent now most of your career working remotely and not really meeting with people, and we have now project managers who have experienced, even their PMPs, who've never actually worked in any office because they started early in the pandemic and now they're like 3.5 years into it. For all of you, I do think that finding opportunities where you can actually meet with people, not just your friends, but people in your professional area or environment is critical. I don't think that only managing or communicating virtually is developing you the way you will need to be truly effective at managing large projects and complex organizations and all of that, even if we would work mostly remotely, right? So it's important, I think, that you go to events, you go to your chapter meeting at PMI, you do that kind of things, and you really try to meet with people in real life and have these opportunities to not just be virtual. I think that would be beneficial for you long term.
Yeah, I know that flexibility, and I think agility is a piece that we've kind of already used to kind of doing already as project professionals, but it's just getting other skills. So how can you communicate better? Or how can you then leverage, teams, be more open, and just being more flexible? I think is actually really really key. I just want before I even ask you this question, I just want you guys to know that Pierre has got like a diverse background. That's why I think we connect so much based on that. As I said that before, right? His mom and his dad are from different cultures, and I know I've heard a bit of your story as well, your background, and you bringing culture together. You've actually embodied that because I want to share. Even when I reached out to Pierre to say, I want come on my podcast. You were just so open, like to say yes, let's come together and impact and create, leaders as well who can definitely be successful. So I am a component to say that yes, Pierre embraces that. But I want to get your take. How do you envision the need for corporate diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging within project management?
I think we talk a lot about that at PMI, in fact. And so, in fact, David, you should, I don't know if you've ever interviewed David, but you should follow if you have not, because he has a very good perspective on that, actually better than mine. Um, yeah, with a lot of great stories that I've listened to before when he speaks. And
Oh,
yeah, it's definitely in some industries. I think it's not just project management. In some industries, there's still a lot of progress that has to be made. In some countries as well, we have to recognize that the world does not see diversity in the same way everywhere. There's
yes.
a very Anglo-Saxon way of thinking about diversity in the UK, in the US, very similar. But if you go to China, if you go to Senegal, if you go to a number of different countries, the perspective is not the same, and we have to respect that. We have also to take people where they are, and not try to necessarily force a certain model into every culture, because they will not necessarily be able to make real progress if they feel that doesn't respect any of their own habits and cultural values, right? So the adaptation of DEI to local cultures, I think, is really critical. And I know it's difficult, it's controversial, but we have to recognize that. And when I see a very typically Anglo-Saxon way of talking about DEI trying to apply itself in a country that has a very different history, culture, starting point, ways of thinking, I feel that's not going to work very well. And that's sad, because then we're not making any progress where we could make progress by adopting by localizing a little bit the thinking in terms of DEI.
I think just with everything, Pierre, you mentioned a very good point because cultures are different, ways of working are different. Everyone sets the tone, and we have to be respectful of everyone's culture and everyone's discipline. And I remember even just yesterday, we had our PMICC PDC event just yesterday, and someone came and spoke about, you know, understanding, different organizations, different values. And it's a point where, as a professional as well, you need to assess and say, what are my core values? Do they actually align with that of this organization? There's some things that you can probably never change. And if you're trying it, it's something that's actually becoming an issue. You may have to look for another place of work. The organizations that are focused, like the millennials now, we want purpose, right? We want to be focused on creating impact. It could be sustainability. But I think is we at a point where you need to go back and do that self-assessment and say, what do I really want for myself? It could be way beyond money, because you could get an organization that pays you so much, but you probably need to sell your soul, or another one that might be paid not as much, but you can make impact, right? You can do what you love. And so you need to think about everything together and be an agent of change, but you don't actually want to lose your mind, while doing that as well. So I think that's absolutely critical. I think we have had a fantastic time. So much questions and stuff. Pierre, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time. Pierre has been to 20 different countries in in the space of how many minutes? He has been all over the world. You've taken time to do this again. We want to say thank you. The Strategic Project Leader podcast and the team are super excited every time we have you here. You come in and you drop nuggets. But one thing I want to end with, as I said, because I'm part of the PMISAC, and we are all about volunteering and support. I know that's a key foundation for PMI. It's based on volunteers. What do you want to talk about that? People giving back. I want you to give us a message that we're going to be sharing at our event December the 8th.
Oh, wonderful. So hello, PMI South, it's South Alberta chapter, right?
Start on the better chapter, yes.
Yeah. First of all, I'd love to go to your event, but I think it's on December 8th, which
Yes.
really it's not an easy date for me, because I'd be again traveling in how many countries I don't remember, but for sure I'll be traveling a lot that week. So thank you very much for the involvement, the passion. The volunteers, as you know, at PMI are absolutely central to what we're doing. We could not do what we're doing, not just the chapters, but also our standards, our content, our experts, our thought leadership. Everything is driven by volunteers who are experts in their areas. And of course, the whole concept of PMI, which is the home of project professionals and aspire to increase or improve project success, this whole concept would not be possible without our volunteers. So thank you so much to all of you, and thank you to all of you who are today with us at Fola's podcast. Always a pleasure to come back. Last year, I think I came during the winter or something like that, about 1 year ago. So
Yes,
again
that's
this year, and we'll talk about how AI has changed everything.
That's right. That's right. We just want to say thank you so much. We had people from all over the world. Like I can't even begin to showcase, like from Asia, from Europe. We had Houston in the house. We had sunny Chinatown. We had New
Asia,
Zealand.
what time is it in Asia? Like, this is amazing.
I don't know exactly. We had people from San
I feel
Francisco.
sorry that you know.
Everyone wants to listen to Pierre and be part of. We had Egypt in the house. We had England in the house. I want to say thank you to Rochelle, to Shaber, to David, to Dr. Tony, to Sherelle, goodness, Alina, to Dr. Fahad, all the way from Republic of Benin. Goodness, I could say
Bonjour
thank.
aux Béninois et à tous les francophones d'Afrique.
Oh my goodness, we had a special message there. That's right. To Dr. Berry, all the way from San Francisco as well. We had Paver. We had like Alina. The names go on. I want you to know that we appreciate you for being here. The goal of this is how we can elevate the project management profession to create greater leaders who actually make impact. Pierre, what are your final words for us today?
Just that, we want to create greater impact and elevate all of you and make you shine. That's really what I want.
That's right. And you do that exceptionally well. I want to say a massive thank you for your time today. And definitely we want you back. You know that. We have to have you permanently on our calendars to actually come in and give us all the great nuggets. Watch out, as Pierre has actually said, PMI has got great resources. We're going to put them in the comments. If you're thinking about the data course, the AI programs, or you're thinking about thought leadership specifically, there's Brightline. There's so much in the pipeline. What I say, a gentleman actually said he wants to make a ding in the universe together as project professionals. We are going to make a positive dent in the universe because project management, I believe, is beyond a career. It is a lifestyle. You can actually elevate your business, your career, your life because I did it. I'm experiencing it and I speak about this globally because the life you crave is just a project away. So let us know how you actually felt about this. With every good idea, I say you have to share. Share this with someone, share with your colleagues, share with your friends, share with your bosses as well. And same time next week, we're going to be sharing exceptional wisdom and exceptional knowledge with you. Thank you so much, Pierre, and have yourself an awesome
Thank
time.
you, everyone.
Anyway,
Bye.
we're still right here. Bye-bye.